supreme leader over in Iran. Now, I have to be honest with you guys. I have to be honest. And we're going to get it both from the Democrats' perspective. We're going to cover this extensively today. We're going to get it both from the Democrats' perspective, and we're going to get it from the conservative perspective, all right? Because I heard Bernie Sanders did a whole video on it. And so I want to evaluate that. Now, I haven't seen the video yet, but based off of the title of that video, I'm afraid. I'm afraid that I might agree with Bernie Sanders on this issue. That's bothersome. That is bothersome. Support and resistance with no profile picture said, no, your platform is going to freeze. Nah, we'll just switch over to something else and we'll continue on to the show. But the Supreme Leader is saying that they will not surrender and the U.S. is going to pay as a result of it. So let's get into it, y'all. Make sure I hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications.
Those who are familiar with the politics of the region, they know that the Americans' involvement in this matter will 100% be at their loss. The loss they receive will probably be much more than the damage Iran will bear. If America have a military presence on the ground, without a doubt it will be an irreparable loss. They are threatening us, and they are also clearly asking us to surrender. With an unacceptable language, they ask the nation to surrender, and they ask us to come and surrender, which surprises us. First of all, they should threaten someone who is scared of their threat. The nation of Iran has shown that they does not feel intimidated by the threat of those doing the threatening.
Moments ago, Iran's supreme leader addressed his nation, saying Iran will not surrender. He also directly responded to President Trump. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei made this threat: let the Americans know that the Iranian nation is not one to surrender, and any military intervention on their part will undoubtedly result in irreparable damage. His remarks coming just day after President Trump called on Tehran to surrender unconditionally. CNN's Nick Payton-Walsh is in London. What more can you tell us about what the Iranian Supreme Leader is saying this morning to his nation, but clearly sending a message to the world and specifically the United States?
Yeah, his second public comment since this conflict, this phase of the conflict began on Friday. And I should say, yes, while the rhetoric is fiery, it's not the most combustible language we've heard coming out of Tehran. And indeed, the irreparable damage, he says, that will be done. He doesn't necessarily say it will be done to the United States bases, for example, in the region. He doesn't, as far as we know at this point, appear to even mention President Trump by name. And also, too, the version we're seeing is a statement that's been read by a female anchor on state news broadcasting. So an interesting set of nuances here, but the words themselves are: let the Americans know that the Iranian nation is not one to surrender, and any military intervention on their part will undoubtedly result in irreparable damage. Those who are wise and familiar with Iran, its people and its history will never speak to this nation in the language of threats. And that, of course, comes after Trump himself suggested that Khamenei was an easy target and suggested they would hold off killing him for now, and demanded unconditional surrender. Now, I think many long-term observers of Iran would say to you it's highly unlikely at any stage you would hear the Ayatollah or anyone in his security circle accept the notion of unconditional surrender, and how, of course, would that even practically occur with Israeli jets in the sky. But this statement, I think, it's clearly putting Iran in a position where it's not about to suddenly kowtow to any specific American demand. It is clearly not looking publicly here or beseeching America for some kind of diplomatic off-ramp. But you've got to bear in mind too, Sarah, the position and condition Iran is currently in. A significant part of its military and indeed nuclear scientists having been killed, that hierarchy gone, disrupted, even the replacement chief of staff of the military killed in just the last 48 hours. Khamenei himself clearly dealing with the most existential crisis indeed of his career, with the Natanz enrichment plant heavily damaged, according to UN inspectors speaking in the last 48 hours, by these Israeli strikes. And so they're now looking, I think, at their military arsenal. What indeed do they have left. Some experts we've been speaking to have suggested they had between 1,000 to 2,000 missiles that could hit Israel. They've possibly burned through 500, maybe 700 of those so far. So really doubts as to how much they have left that could be used as a deterrent against Israel, period. And I think that will be dictating a lot of their choices going forwards. They can't publicly give in, but there's not an awful lot potentially, as far as we know, they can do to deter the US and Israel in the days and weeks ahead.
Iran Supreme Leader ratcheting up its war of words with the U.S. this morning. The U.S. military now surging its troops in the region. And two sources, CNN says President Trump is increasingly warming to the idea of the U.S. using its military to strike Iran's nuclear facilities. Iran ramping up tough talk, as we mentioned just a short time ago. Iran Supreme Leader warned that if the U.S. gets involved in the conflict, it will cause irreparable damage. That comes after President Trump said the Ayatollah would be an easy target and demanded Iran's unconditional surrender. Already, the U.S. is mobilizing forces, sending another aircraft carrier to the Middle East, and sources telling CNN the U.S. is deploying more than 30 aerial refueling tankers to the region as well.
Again, personally, I believe that Iran is done. All right. I think that they can't even fight against Israel. And what I really believe has happened, and if I'm just being absolutely honest and transparent, I believe that we are basically fighting a proxy war on Iran through Israel. I believe, and this is not based off of anything that anybody told me. This is just me looking at all of the news reports over time, asking a lot of questions on why we continue to be in alliance with Iran. Everybody keep telling me, oh no, it's because, the Holy Land. Man, get the hell out of here, bro. You're never going to sell me on the idea that we're supporting supporting Israel, or that we're holding them down because it's God's people or something like that. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I believe that the reason why we support different people and different countries is because either it financially benefits us or it puts us in a position to use them as crash dummies so that we can then shut down whoever our real adversaries or who we really have issues with. That's what I believe. Like, I could sit here and talk about what the news talk about. I could sit here and say, yeah, they're our allies because of what's going on against their neighbors in Iraq and all of that. I could sit here and play that game. If I'm giving my personal opinion, I believe that the reason why we're doing it is because we don't like the fact that they are trying to develop nuclear weapons. We don't like the fact that they've continued to support our adversaries and their allies. And more importantly, it's an opportunity for us to be able to take them out and have a proxy war. And this is one of the reasons why we continue to support them with military equipment, refueling, all of this stuff. And so we may be benefiting financially as far as Israel may be sending money so that they can buy some of the stuff that they're using in order to have this war. But I believe that we are absolutely in a proxy war with Iran. I don't care what's preached in white churches. I'm telling you what I believe. I don't care what's preached in white churches. I don't know. Have y'all been to white churches? Do y'all know what they saying inside of the pulpit? I believe this is our opportunity to once and for all put a stop to this and get them up out of the way. Now, I could be off. And this is the reason why I have y'all inside of the chat to say some of the things that y'all say, because we do not move in we are not an echo chamber. We say what we want. We say what we really mean. And we get it popping. Now, let's look at this from the other side, right? Let's look at it from the other lens. Because I don't agree with everything that Trump does. And this is one of the main things that I have a disagreement. And I'm not saying that he's wrong. I'm going to wait and see how it plays out. Let's say that Kamala Harris's disaster was in office, right? Let's say that we had Kamala Harris in office right now. Let's say that we had Kamala Harris in office right now. And I think that that would be an absolute, the worst possibility. Let's say that we had Kamala Harris in office and we had this same situation. It's a strong possibility that you would see Israel strike Iran, right? What do you guys think that Trump would have said if we'd have had Democrats in office, Biden, Kamala Harris, whomever? If we'd had Democrats in office and Israel then struck Iran in the same way that they did right now, what do y'all think that Trump would say? What's up to my girl Mika? I seen what Senator Ted Cruz said to Tucker Carlson. What do y'all think that Trump would have said? A proxy war is a war that we're indirectly having or waging against whoever our enemy is. So, for example, if you're using Israel or Israel is saying, man, I got beef with this person, and you say, yeah, I don't necessarily got beef with them, but if you want to strike them, I'm not going to do nothing about it. And I know you my ally, so I'm going to hold you down. We don't want to do it ourselves, so we're going to leverage other countries to do it for us. That's what a proxy war is. Trump will say, no wars on my watch. Oh, Jarius, you hit the nail on the head. He would say, we would never have been in that war had I been in office. Correct, Brothers Keeper. He would say, Iran would have never did this. They would have been crippled. When I was in office, we had sanctions on them. And they had no money, they had no power, and now look at where they are, and so on and so forth. That is exactly what he would say. And I'm just being honest. And I love Trump. I love Trump. I love what it is that he's done in office so far. But if we had a Democrat in office and this had happened under their watch, Trump would say that we would never have had this happen had I been president of the United States of America. And we just gonna be real. Y'all, can we keep it 100? Can we have an uncomfortable conversation right now? Can we have an uncomfortable conversation right now? Or do we have to be politically correct? And we all most of us is conservative in here. I'm not uncomfortable to have uncomfortable conversations because nobody owns me. Nobody has ever given me a paycheck. No news organization, no news agency, anybody that has ever offered me anything, no PAC, no advertisement, no nothing. Anybody that has ever offered me anything, I've always turned them down because I believe in maintaining the integrity of my platform to be able to say what I really want to say. Nobody can say that I'm paid. Nobody can say that I ever got a check. Nobody can say that anybody has ever hired me. I want to say what I want to say. And so as a result of saying what I want to say, even though I 100% agree with the job that he has done thus far inside of being president since he's been inaugurated back in January, what he would have said had a Democrat been in office is this would have never happened under my watch. And we would have all been in agreement and we would have been saying, yeah, I would have been in agreement based off of no new wars. On his first term, I would have said, that is 100% true. Man, I can't stand these Democrats. They are warmongers and all of this stuff. So now I have to look at this a little bit more holistically and say, well, does this really make sense? I would have 100% been on board. 100% been on board. That's true because the track record says so. That's true. And you know what? This never would have happened to Ukraine. This never would have happened. We would never be in this war. I can't stand these Democrats. I would 100% on board. 100% been on that train. Not even questioning it. I thought about this. I thought about this morning as I was taking a shower. As I looked at the news and I said, yep, we're going to continue to cover Iran and Israel and all of this stuff today, right? I knew it. And then I thought to myself, because I had looked at a video that was on TikTok from some crazy liberal and somebody that was gay. And he was like, if Kamala Harris would have been in office, we'd have had these deportations. And he was talking with a bunch of THs in his speech. And then I started to combine it, right? I said, well, if Kamala Harris would have been in office, what would we have said? Because I think that she would have been a disaster, 100%. But what would we have said as Republicans that supported Trump? We would have said, well, if Trump was in office, we wouldn't even have these wars anymore. How am I a delusion? The thing about liberals, the thing about Democrats is I've always kept it 100. I've always been 100% honest with my thoughts and how I see things, right? 100%, which is one of the reasons why we're having this conversation right now. I've always been 100% real with my thoughts. And so even when it seems as though I'm aligning with their sentiment a little bit, right? They still can't take it. I can't take it. I don't like you, Anton. Oh, okay. I know that y'all just some angry motherfuckers. I had a nickname for a guy that I used to work with. And it was back when I was working in right before I started working at the steel mill. And I was working at this I was working at this auto supplier. And every time you would go in the lunchroom, it didn't matter if you agreed with this one guy or you disagreed with this one guy. His nickname for us, and he didn't know what his nickname to us was mean motherfucker. That's the honest to God truth. Man, you know what? I'm about to start doing stand-up because I don't want y'all taking my content and taking my original content and then seeing it somewhere else and somebody taking my stuff. It was a guy that I used to work with. And it didn't matter what happened. We didn't know if he had a bad marriage. We didn't know if his kids was gay. We didn't know if he just didn't like the job that he was doing. He had been there for a long time, since the opening of that auto supplier. And every time you go in the lunchroom, he was angry. He was just evil. And we used to call him mean motherfucker. That's a mean motherfucker over there. And that's how I look at Democrats. You can go over and kick it with him. Hey, listen, what do you think about this? You could disagree with him. You can agree with him. It don't really matter what the issue is. Them some mean motherfuckers. Gay and mean. 100%. Calvin Thomas says, damn, how many jobs you done had? Man, I'm 40. I've been working since I was 16. I'm 43. Nigga, how many jobs haven't you had? Ain't you supposed to have a lot of jobs? Ain't you supposed to job hop and figure it out when you're younger before you get that good job?